Our news is brought to you by Alive.
Coming up tonight, given the high rate of gang violence in the Bahamas, the country's Attorney General promises a look into replicating gang legislation. Amid of spate of gang-related murders, the opposition leader calls for a crime summit. And the nation kicks off Holy Week with Palm Sunday service. Welcome to our News Weekend edition. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Megan Shepard. As the island continues to be plagued with murder and gang violence in recent months, the Attorney General, Ryan Pinder, notes the Prime Minister has requested a review of regional gang legislation for benchmarking. Pinder says he has been focusing on the standalone gang legislation in Jamaica and Trinidad.
In 2014, there was an amendment to the Penal Code that embedded certain offenses within our Penal Code for membership and being part of a gang, but also committing crimes while being part of a gang and organized criminal groups. And that's on the books. And I've actually spoken to the Department of Public Prosecutions about framing up and how can we prosecute, because the penalties are severe. And actually, you only have to be a member of a gang and demonstrate that in the court of law under our Penal Code now. So we're working in parallel routes. We want to see how we can bring prosecutions under the current law and the Penal Code while reviewing regional legislation and benchmarking it to see if we can improve our laws and whether it makes sense to have a standalone gang legislation or whether it makes sense to expand it further within the Penal Code.
Opposition leader Michael Pintard reacting to the recent rise in crime and how he believes the Davis administration ought to address it. Jasmine Brown has the story.
As murders continue to rise, the Free National Movement leader says it's time for the Davis administration to do more than just talk. Pintard calling on the government to convene a crime summit of leaders and members of various criminal groups. Pintard says, put bluntly, politicians are likely well aware of who the members of gangs are in their constituencies and helping during their campaigns.
We believe the government needs to convene a summit that is pulling together the leaders of these different factions to have a conversation with respect to the choices that they're making. We all know, and let's be real, that the influential persons at the street level, whether it's gang, whether it's persons involved in the informal sector, that political figures have knowledge of who they are and some relationship with them because they utilize them during the election cycles. And so they ought to pull these persons together to diffuse, to interrupt this violence.
During the weekly Office of the Prime Minister press briefing on Thursday, Prime Minister Davis announced several measures to stem the escalation of murder, including saturation patrols, an increase in drones and shot spotter technology, the creation of a new police task force, and the constitution of the National Security Council. The PM's announcement came after 5 men were murdered in separate incidents between Sunday and Wednesday, and hours before another man was killed on Andros Avenue, pushing the murder count to 44. Pintard says he could not weigh in on the PM's most recent pronouncements as he has not had a chance to go through it. But he did reference the crime conclave held by the PM last month.
I did attend a briefing, not a conclave, a briefing where the police explained the genesis of some of the gang violence and the investigations that they are carrying through. And so at that point, there was no crime plan.
He also had a few suggestions of his own.
We released a number of recommendations that the government should look at. And again, one of those we thought was saturation in hotspot areas, inclusive of using the police mobile van.
Reporting for our news, I'm Jasmine Brown.
The Ministry of Health and Wellness is gearing up to send COVID-19 test samples to a testing lab in Panama to find out if the COVID-19 XE variant is present in country. The variant is a hybrid of the Omicron virus, BA1 and BA2.
The samples are being sent to our reference lab abroad that will guide us on whether or not the strain is in the country. And so discussions are ongoing with the reference lab to try to do that very quickly, because some of our new protocols and plans are directly linked if we confirm that the new strain is in country.
Last year, the government sent samples to Brazil to find out if the Omicron variant was in country. Darville confirmed that the ministry received those results near the end of the last wave, which confirmed the variant was in country.
We did get them, and it proved that the Omicron variant was in the country. We got it on the tail end of the fourth wave. There was some logistical problems with the sample testing. We have solved that, and I'm pleased that our reference lab, in conjunction with PAHO and WHO, we now have additional samples out of the country for testing.
April is recognized as Child Protection Month, and this year's theme is No Excuse for Abuse, Stop the Violence. A special service was held this week to kick off the observation. Several schools from across the island taking part in the event, and even Family Island schools participating virtually. This year's patron and wife of the Prime Minister, Anne Marie Davis, emphasized children's rights to be protected and free from abuse.
Neglect. This is the failure, whether it is intentional or not, of your parents or guardians to provide you with shelter, clothing, with health care or educational needs. When you do not get these things, that is neglect. There's physical abuse. This is severe beating, burns, biting, or even strangulation. This actually happens. That is abuse.
She encouraged the students to speak out if they are a victim of abuse or know someone who is being abused.
Sexual abuse. This includes touching your bodies, your private parts, sexual relations with family members, which is incest, which is wrong, and sometimes also exposing you to pornography. This is all wrong. This is sexual abuse. We have to stop all this. Another one is emotional abuse. This occurs when your emotional development and your self-esteem are attacked.
Minister of Social Services Obi Wilshcombe also in attendance, challenging them to become a part of the solution. Wilshcombe says abuse is plaguing the country and everyone must play a part in overcoming this menace.
I need you to be a part of what we do. You must use all that you have, the tools that you have today, like your cell phone, to communicate, to pass on information, to let us know, to tell us the stories, share with us. You must also stop, think before making decisions. And when you don't know, talk to your teacher, talk to your counselor, talk to your parents, talk to those persons who you trust.
Millions of Christians marking Holy Week observances this week. It is the most important season in the church's liturgical calendar, starting with Palm Sunday today. It is the symbolic recollection of the triumphant arrival of Jesus into Jerusalem, which eventually led to his crucifixion. After a 2-year hiatus, thousands of Bahamians marked the observance in large numbers today, now that a lot of the restrictive COVID measures have been lifted. Our news team spent the morning at one of the more popular churches, St. Agnes Anglican Church. A more than 2,000-year-old tradition celebrated in the full pageantry of the traditional Anglican Mass. For 2 years, COVID-19 restrictions prevented this and other significant liturgical observances from taking place. But it was clear from the congregational participation on Sunday, it was a welcomed return. The familiar procession into nearby streets is a reenactment of sorts of the jubilation Christ encountered as he arrived in Jerusalem after a 40-day fast and temptations in the wilderness.
Open! Open! Open!
Back in the sanctuary, another seasonal familiar, the Passion of Christ. Reverend Father Rule Strawn is telling the congregation that Palm Sunday challenges us to take up our own crosses and walk the road that Jesus did.
Walking to Jerusalem also means that as we walk, while we may find the path dark at times, we have the assurance of eternal life. And so we can walk on the darkest and the most dangerous of roads, because our Lord walked those roads before us.
And a reminder that Palm Sunday has a purpose that is tied to Holy Week.
Palm Sunday is but the first stop, the first station in Holy Week. We take our palms and we journey with Jesus to Jerusalem. We sit beside him and we stand beside him and we hear his words, "Do this in remembrance of me."
As church services are returning to normal, Reverend Strawn says Christians must now be challenged as normal too and display palms every day.
And if anybody asks you, what do these palms mean? You tell them that this is a sign of victory. This is a sign of glory and that we hail Christ as our King. And we want you to join us. We want you to join us in walking this road to Jerusalem, as dark and as dangerous as it may be, because it is the path that leads to life.
Still to come on our News Weekend edition, Aquinas College students told to maximize green projects, and family and friends pay homage to veteran educator Anita Doherty. That's coming up when our news returns.
Got size at 6'5". Hi, this is Shamika.
You're watching our news. Welcome back. Minister of Health and Wellness Dr. Michael Darville addressed students at Aquinas College this past week at the donation of a greenhouse in collaboration with the Ministry of Agriculture and Marine Resources at the school's celebration of World Health Day. Minister Darville said the theme of World Health Day, Our Planet, Our Health, was most fitting as there is a growing body of evidence that points to the fact that access to nature can help in the healing of ailing and stressed out populations. This, he said, was always considered a homegrown application for good health, but that the scientific community is pointing to increasing data that touts nature as an under-recognized healer, able to help in reducing depression, stress, high blood pressure, and obesity, and to boost overall well-being in children and adults. Family, friends, warriors, and the wider community coming together for a bittersweet memorial service to celebrate the life of a woman who has impacted the lives of thousands of Grand Bahamian students through her stern but passionate guidance.
Ms. Doherty never told me that she was wrong for telling me to pick up a sport. But what she did do was make sure that she put the mic back in my hand, got me back on that talk show, and let me run my race in my lane. And so I celebrate Anita Doherty for really giving me the opportunity, along with my principal, Mr. Samuel Bethel, to grow in my skill and talent and to run my own race. And I honor her. And on behalf of the class of 2T6, as we called ourselves, we love you, Miss D. May you rest in peace. Aww.
Former veteran educator Anita Doherty remembered for everything that made her special, from her words of encouragement to the discipline that many say pushed them to be the people that they are today. Minister for Grand Bahama Ginger Moxie says Doherty had watchful eyes, and it was her unfiltered commentary that made the community cherish her.
Anita Doherty was a decorated athlete, a distinguished educator, a civic leader, fierce advocate for Grand Bahama, and a woman I respected in the highest regard. Grand Bahama, we have lost a giant. BMES warriors, FHS warriors, FAHS warriors, we have indeed lost a giant. And I truly believe that our community will be less colorful without the presence of our Anita L. Doherty.
Doherty, who was also a stellar athlete, pushed student athletes to success. Member of Parliament for Central Grand Bahama, Iram Lewis, says while attending Freeport High School, Doherty ensured he never lost a race. He used this analogy of a golden coconut.
Like a coconut, she also had that bark, the exterior, that protection. But beyond just the appearance of that bark, she had a real bark, the scatter matter father. And if you don't scatter, you'll feel the bite. Oh yeah. Beyond that bark, there was that shell, the hard shell that protected the inner contents of the coconut. But beyond that, more than that, that shell shaped all of us, shaped a lot of us, made us hard, gave us courage, gave us direction. And once you crack that shell, you came to that sweet jelly, that soft heart, the humanitarian.
Member of Parliament for East Grand Bahama, Kwesi Thompson, admits Doherty often gave tough love, but it was always for the betterment of her students.
Mrs. D has impacted the lives of thousands of warriors all across this island and across the country. All of us can think of a moment in time when she either pushed us or corrected us.
Anita Doherty died on March 28th at the age of 73. When our news comes back from the break, Grand Bahamian women launch a conch product. The details in our Grand Bahama in Focus segment. And our news, yes, our news receives honors. We have the details when our news weekend edition returns.
Got size at 6'5". Hi, this is Shamika.
Minister of Agriculture, Marine Resources and Family Island Affairs Clay Sweeting wrapping up a trip to Ecuador where he led a delegation of 5 for the 37th Regional United National Food and Agriculture Conference of Latin America and the Caribbean.
I am very excited to say that it has been very successful. We were able to create not just linkages with other Caribbean countries, but also friendships.
The minister says it was a very successful conference which was held from March 28th to April 1st. Bahamas ambassador to the FAO, Winston Pinnock, says the regional organization is a valuable partner.
We have quite a number of things to take back home as wins. Being exposed in an environment of this, you get to meet pretty much all of the other Caribbean country leaders, ministers, or high-level ambassadors or dignitaries, making a push for their country to improve their agricultural sector, to get technical support or funding or both from the FAO and other world bodies.
A trio of Bahamian businesswomen did not let a slumping economy and global health crisis stop them from pursuing their culinary dreams. Just last month, they launched an authentically Bahamian conch broth they say will not only add flavor, but also help conch conservation efforts. Jasmine Brown has their inspiring story in this report.
Tanika Malcolm Ward, C. Tamika Lightborn, and Christine Turnquest Knowles are the Grand Bahama businesswomen behind Pure Flavor Conch Broth. They say the process from conception to completion included 2 years of research and development. Malcolm Ward is the company's CEO and founder, and Lightborn is the vice president.
I am honestly just excited and thankful for the opportunity to make this a reality.
We all know conch is basically a Bahamian staple, you know. Tanika and I sat down many weeks, many days, trying to fine-tune the taste, trying to get it just right.
Pure Flavor is a brand of Finda Roots Collaborations Limited, which was established in 2021 and is headquartered in Freeport, Grand Bahama. The business was set up during a pandemic, and while Grand Bahama was still recovering from 2019's monster storm Dorian.
We did the actual opposite. We didn't focus on Dorian or the pandemic or the economic state of Grand Bahama. We focused on the end result. What is it that we wanted to achieve and obtain? And we put all of our energy, time, resources into that.
The Grand Bahama natives say the broth has also passed rigorous lab testing, meeting all national and international regulations, and has also undergone nutritional analysis, deemed a safe quality, fresh, refrigerated product. And if that isn't enough, it's also been tested by local chefs at tasting events in both Grand Bahama and New Providence. Their next step is getting the product on shelves across the country.
2 of the products that we have now that are actually available is our conch broth, and it comes salted and unsalted. We were very cognizant of health issues that a lot of Bahamians have as well. Another product that we have coming is our conch bouillon. So that's in the stages, that's being tested currently. So we hope to bring that to market pretty soon.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Jasmine Brown.
Our News receiving a special honor recently from the Grand Bahama community organization, the Falcons Boys Club. The group is focused on saving young boys and men. Now, in its 25th year of operation, the group presented a number of awards to those organizations which support their work in the community. Accepting on behalf of Our News was executive producer Jerome Sawyer.
First of all, thank you very much, sir, for this honor. When we envisioned News in Grand Bahama 2 years ago when I joined the organization officially, we didn't know how we were going to do it, resources being what they are. But I can't take this credit today. What you see coming out of Grand Bahama and the extensive coverage that we get is in no small measure to that gentleman right there, Mr. Tim Aylen. And I want to invite Tim to the front. I know you're always on the other side of the camera, but please invite Tim to the front to share in this honor with me. Tim is a one-man band. He shoots, he sends us stories, he knows what's going on. He keeps us so well informed and up to date in Grand Bahama. So we could not do it without Tim, and thank you for this honor.
And it is our pleasure to continue to serve the community. A look at weather is coming up on the other side of the break, and today marks the beginning of Holy Week. We will learn the significance in just a few minutes.
Got size at 6'5". Hi, this is Salute.
Welcome back to Our News Weekend Edition. Well, we had our last cold front for the season last night, and now we look forward to warm breezes. Let's see how weather will be shaping up over the next few days. And information coming into our newsroom now that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is confirming a crash in New Haven, Connecticut, involving 2 males, both of whom are confirmed to be Bahamian nationals. Raymond Roll, a 21-year-old student at the University of New Haven in West Haven, succumbed to his injuries, and the other passenger, who was said to be the driver, has been identified as Keanu Adderley, a 26-year-old of West Haven. Adderley was transported to Bridgeport Hospital with life-threatening injuries, where he was subsequently treated and is now listed in stable condition. Ministry officials via the Bahamas Consulate General in New York have been and will remain in contact with the families of both victims and stand ready to assist wherever possible. Now, Holy Week began today in the Christian Church as many are celebrating Palm Sunday. The week will end with Resurrection Sunday, also known as Easter Sunday. Our Sasha Lightbourne speaks with her pastor about the significance of the entire week.
Next to Christmas, Easter is one of the most sacred times on the Christian calendar. For many, it begins with Lent, signifying the time when Jesus fasted and prayed for 40 days and 40 nights. And then the culmination on Easter Sunday with Jesus' ascension into heaven. Senior pastor at Kemp Road Ministries, Reverend Dr. Ivan Ford Butler Jr., explains.
Holy Week is the most momentous time in the life of the Christian church. It is the week that changed the world. It's the week that when we would have had the Palm Sunday, we would have had Good Friday, and then Easter. For us, we call it Resurrection.
The senior pastor also explained that without the Easter season, the world as we know it today would be very different.
That is the time that is so significant in the Christian faith that without that period in the Christian church, there would be really no, it would have impacted our faith.
Easter Sunday will be celebrated on April 17th. For our news, I'm Sasha Lightbourne.
We thank you so much for joining us for our News Weekend edition. On behalf of the entire team, I'm Megan Shepherd. Have a wonderful evening.